Obviously, revenue is a big issue for cities. That was courageous to pass that 1% occupational tax. But right now, cities are limited. They're limited to, an insurance premium tax, property taxes, an occupational license tax, and then certain classes of cities can raise money through the hotel, motel, and restaurant taxes, but that money has to be used for tourism. So it's really not an avenue to raise a lot of money. So we need to find ways for cities to control their own destinies and decide how they can raise their own money and take care of themselves. And we're looking at, JD's going to talk about this, a local option sales tax, which you may or may not have heard about, but that would be something that would have to go through the legislature, and then it would have to be a constitutional amendment. And then beyond that, a city would be able to pick a project, and then citizens in that city would vote yes or no. And then when the project is done, it would go away. So it's really something that's been used across the country in a number of states. And that's something that we'd like to work on with the legislature. It may take a number of years to get that passed, but if passed, it's not saying you have to have it, it's just another tool in the toolbox. So that's something that we'd like to work on. Other issues that I see out there that would be nice to fix, for example, road aid. 39% of the vehicle miles traveled in Kentucky are on urban roads, or on city roads. Yet 16% of the road funds come to cities. So there's a real difference there. There's a real disparity. So, roads that get very little travel may be getting more pavement and more maintenance than roads that are getting a lot of travel. Again, it's something that we, as KLC would like to work on for you. We put together this book, Joseph Coleman on JD's staff. It went out to all cities. It went out to all the state reps and all the senators. And it's really a fact book about Kentucky cities, and there's some great information in here. For example, the largest cost to operate a city. Anyone want to guess what the largest cost is? Personnel. It's actually, public safety costs more than all other costs combined. Public safety is absolutely the most expensive part of a city budget. And by passing pension reform in this year's session, that is going to pay dividends down the road, because we look at that over the next 20 years, it's going to save over $1 billion. And a lot of that money is that public safety personnel. Another issue we're working on is 911, how to fund 911 services. Because for the most part, it's a bill on the landline, and so many people are going away from landlines today. I mean, I keep mine just because I give it to the people that don't want to call me. Go to get my tires changed or something. It's like, yeah, call that one, or so it's so people don't, landlines are going away, and the irony is, with cell phones, more and more people just carry them, they have them with them, so 911 is getting more calls when something happens. So it's a model that doesn't work. You can't be collecting fewer dollars and getting more calls. So we need to work on that, and I think JD's going to talk about some options for that as well. Another one that you probably haven't heard much about, but I think you will, is cyber liability. And you may be thinking, well, we've got a few computers and servers, and we don't do a lot with technology, but so why should we worry about cyber liability? But government, local, state, federal governments are the largest collectors of private data. And security is probably not as strong as it is in certain corporations, like I remember TJ Maxx getting broken into, and some of these other big companies. But cyber liability is going to become a bigger and bigger issue as more and more people start trying to break in and steal information, and I think we're going to see something coming from the auditor's office with some recommendations on cyber liability in the upcoming session. And it's just something you need to worry about, because you are responsible for all of that data that you collect. Another issue that we're seeing, and I know we're going to have to deal with this year, I'm not sure what the answer is if you remember, there was the pill mill issue, and that was House Bill 1, and we worked very hard to try and curb prescriptions being written and stop the pills coming from Florida, and just trying to break that cycle. Well, it was a good piece of legislation that passed, and it did what it was supposed to do, but they kept warning us, local law enforcement, that if that happened and pills became harder to get and more expensive, the next choice would be heroin. And we are seeing it all across the state, and it is an issue for cities in so many ways. It's time for your police force. It's productivity in your communities. It's an issue that companies will look at if they want to relocate or open a business. in a community, they will look and see what the drug rates are and what's going on there. So it affects your economy. Rehabilitation costs, crime, it's a big issue. I know that there are certain counties in Kentucky where more than half of the kids do not live with either one of their parents. It's just gotten that bad. So that is something I'm sure we're going to be hearing more about in the legislature as well. Another issue that Mayor Austin asked me to discuss was health care. Who knows what's going to happen with health care? We're not sure. What KLC has done is we've offered a health plan in the past for small groups where they can get the large group rating. And what we've done is created a new pool or a new trust so that if you have under 100 employees, you can still get the large group rates. It's something we've been working on with the lawyers. I said, I feel like I've got a machete going through the jungle because nobody can tell us what we can and can't do and if we're doing things the right way. And I said, you know what, let's just keep doing things the way we think we're supposed to on this. Let's get it established, and if they come back in 4 years and say you did it wrong in 2013, well, we did it for the right reasons, and that was to help cities. So we're going to go forward with this health trust, and if you're in a situation where you're providing health insurance and it looks like some of your rates are going up, give us a call. We might be able to help you with this new program. So one of the other ones, and I know JD will talk about this as well, is as I talked about the Constitution and the classification system. You all know there's 6 classes of cities, and Lexington, Louisville being the first class, and all the way down to the 6. Well, a third of our cities are not even in the population range they should be, as far as the classes. They've either asked or they've outgrown or changed. And so it's a very, very comprehensive bill that we're working on that will take on all kinds of issues. It must be, what, 500 pages worth of stuff to try and fix this 1891 classification system. What we're hoping it does is, if we can get this done, we'll level the playing field, we'll let cities control their own destinies a little bit more. You don't have to worry about, can this city serve alcohol in a restaurant or not? Can this city have a restaurant desk? Can this city do this or that? There's all kinds of differences, and they're really, it's very, very outdated and archaic, and we hear that a lot from our members. So that's, again, a policy issue that we'll be working on.
We have some uphill battles with the legislature, and I think the board probably this year, more than any other, is probably going to put some high demands with regard to some of the things that we need to accomplish. That Constitution simply is ill-suited in modern times to keep up with the changing economy and the modern economy and what it does to local governments. It forces cities to go look at occupational taxes and property taxes, and most city officials, and I don't know if you feel this way, but a lot of them I talk to say property taxes aren't an option. You put the city tax on the county tax, on the state tax, and the school board tax, and if you have an ambulance district or you have something else, most public officials are reluctant to even take the 4% over the compensating tax rate on the property taxes because they feel they're too high. In addition, the statute points you right in the direction, our Constitution forces you into a role of having to tax businesses. And when you do that, and it's a great tax, but when you go above 1%, like in Lexington, that's at 2.5%, and you put that on top of the state corporate income tax, and then you want to look at being competitive regionally in terms of attracting business, it's a negative for Kentucky communities. So we need to have the option to diversify our revenue sources. Cities in Kentucky are as diverse as could be. If you traveled to Pikeville, it couldn't be more different than Owensboro, and Paintsville, Kentucky is very different than Sacramento, Kentucky, and Corbin and Covington couldn't be more opposite of one another. And so we need the ability for local officials to be able to leverage their strengths by having a number of tools in the toolbox. You may not want to do an insurance premium tax or an occupational tax because it may not produce revenue. Why not be able to do a local option sales tax? Or, heaven forbid, that Beaver Dam be able to enact a restaurant tax and capture part of that revenue without sending it to a tourism commission. That would be a major source of revenue that could result in reductions in other areas. And that's the other revenue diversification issue that I think the league's going to be charged with looking at in the 2014 session is taking those restaurant tax statutes. If you're a 4th or 5th class city in Kentucky, you can enact a restaurant tax. But you have to send all that money to the Tourism Commission, unless you can come up with some creative agreement to figure out another way to do it, like City of Corbin did to run their tourism in Pikeville has in the past. And if you allowed cities like Henderson and Owensboro, and Bowling Green and Richmond to enact the restaurant tax as larger cities, then it would produce $7, $8, $9 million in revenue. It's difficult to imagine handing those funds over to a tourism commission to print pamphlets and put hotels on billboards and things of that nature. Tourism is important, but cities could use that revenue to offset other types of taxes or engage in major projects like the River Park Center here or other museums or other things that showcase the unique assets of the community. I mentioned the 1891 Constitution. I'm anxious to get the bill draft out to reduce the number of city classes and take some of those mandates off, like second-class cities. They have to put their firefighters on a 24, 48-hour shift. Other cities don't have that statutory requirement. We have a number of communities that think they could leverage scheduling much better that would reduce their overall personnel costs. Why does the state tell the city how they need to schedule their personnel to serve their local community needs? And why is a 3rd or 4th class city able to leverage a regulatory fee on alcohol sales to cover their police costs, but no other city is? It's illogical. They're relics of a bygone era, and the statutes need to be cleansed of those types of distinctions where we can, to give local officials the best oversight that they can have and the best ability to make their decisions in the best interest of their community. Occupational license taxes are a constant debate. Your friends at county government want to discuss this issue quite a bit, because in some cities and counties, if you're in a county with a population over 30,000, the city residents, the city taxpayers on occupational tax are able to credit their payment against the county tax if both the city and county have an occupational tax. If you're in a county under 30,000 in population, those taxes are stacked. It's more expensive to be in the city from an occupational tax perspective. And a lot of the city officials come back and say, we don't know what we're getting for being charged for this occupational tax by the county government in return for paying that tax where they're stacked. So we'll be debating with counties. There's this tug of war a little bit. Sometimes we work well with the Kentucky Association of Counties, but there are some divergent interests there with regard to how that may work. So I look forward to hopefully coming to some consensus and resolution on that issue with them. You know, city officials have also brought up such minute issue. There's no issue too small to bring up to your legislative board. And that's true, isn't it? No, we had several council members write in to say we want 4-year terms instead of 2-year terms. Will you seek an amendment to the Kentucky Constitution to allow us to serve 4 years instead of 2 years? I think the board will vote it down, but when it's presented to them. Also on the gun regulation, we've had a number of cities call as a result of the statutes on carrying concealed weapons, that cities are unable to regulate employees while on the clock and carrying guns. So we have in Louisville some sanitation workers riding on the back of garbage trucks with their concealed weapons. It may not be such a big deal. Out here you may embrace that a little better, but a number of city officials have complained about not being able to regulate their employee conduct. And on cyber liability, yeah, I think it's going to be a big issue. We hope that the auditor's office doesn't do what we dread the most, which is come out with some kind of awful unfunded mandate on city governments about how they're to protect the data that's going to impose additional cost on you all and the taxpayers. And that'll be something that we hope to work hand in hand with the auditor's office on, and would certainly oppose any unreasonable mandates if that were to occur.